You've heard it before, delete unnecessary words. But which words are the unnecessary ones, and why does it really matter? We'll look at some places in sentences where these words hide, and the often subtle ways in which wordiness undercuts strong writing. There are many types of uh, redundant words, but two that we'll look at here to begin are intensifiers and redundant modifiers and qualifiers. Intensifiers are words, or specifically modifiers, meant to add emphasis, but they contain little or no new information, so they have little impact. They just, um, increase the um, degree of something, like it was really great. And here are some examples of common intensifier words. Really, perfectly, very, that's a very common one. I just used it. Absolutely, completely, and of course the effing word, which is used all the time, but really doesn't add any meaning. It could go with a good thing, a bad thing, a small thing, big things, anything. Here's a few examples: an absolutely great game, a perfectly dark night, an incredibly loud crash, a literal fortune. So these words here are only increasing the degree. They're not really adding any information, and so they're not really doing any work. You would need to find a word that said something, or a phrase that said more to it. Uh, for instance, instead of an incredibly loud crash, a crash that made the ears ring. Because a crash is also loud, so loud is a bit repetitive there too. Redundant modifiers and qualifiers. These are interesting, I think. And there's several types. Stacking similar modifiers in descriptive writing. Here are some examples from professional writers. The first one is from a novelist, and it says the character was sad, despondent, dejected. The three words have very similar meanings. We might like the D, the alliteration of the D sound in each one, but it's not really accumulating any new information or impact. And the second one is by a journalist. Janet Reno is remembered by her colleagues with affection, fondness, and warmth. Again, all three of those words are very similar. Now, another example here is a qualifier that really only echoes the word that is already being modified, like to snatch quickly. Well, a snatch is something that's quick. That's why it's a very short one-syllable word. To shriek loudly, well, a shriek by nature is penetrating, and so loudly is not really adding anything. Either cut it or find a new detail to create the emphasis. Advance warning, a warning is already something in advance, and so that seems repetitive. An actual fact, well, as opposed to a fact that is not actual, then it wouldn't be a fact. I'd like to show you a couple of examples of entire sentences that have quite a bit of wordiness in them. And in this sentence, I have underlined the words that I think are, unnecessary for the meaning. This passage was written by a federal bureaucrat, the head of an agency. I'll give you a minute here to read the sentence, or you might stop the video. Okay, in the first line there, just is right off of our list of intensifiers. Initial start, well, a start would by nature be initial. What is hoped to be, well, they wouldn't do it if they didn't expect it to uh, go forward. An ongoing effort as opposed to an effort that is not ongoing by our agency. Then it says to review and examine. The verbs review and examine seem quite similar. It doesn't seem necessary to have both. And then that long phrase at the end also seems to be quite wordy. We understand that it would be based on experience or data and performance. When I take out those words that I underlined, we're left with this. This work is the start of an effort by our agency to improve the technical content of the building codes. That takes 31 words out of the 51. In other words, there's 61% less fat, and I'd argue that all of the important, the essential meaning of the original is all in this one, and it's a lot easier for the reader to take it in. Here's another example of word bloat. This one is by an academic talking about science, and again, I'll give you a moment to read it. You might stop your video, and again, I've underlined words that I think are redundant. And also in square brackets, I've included a couple of replacement words, a single word to replace two. Okay, in the second line, we've got pervasive and ingrained fraud. Pervasive and ingrained are not exactly the same. Ingrained means deep, pervasive means wide, but I'm not sure it's necessary to have both. And it kind of sticks out given all of the other redundancy in here. Later in that line, we have fraud and deceit. Fraud and deceit are very similar in meaning, and so one of them seems to be unnecessary. The prepositional phrase, the presence of, seems unnecessary. We can just go straight to even the occasional scandalous misdeeds. And this is a case where I took scandalous misdeeds and reduced it to scandals, which is in square brackets. Relatively comes right off of our list of intensifiers. And then scientific researchers, in square brackets, I put scientists. I believe that word is better than scientific researchers. So if we take those things out, we're left with this. Without the vastly overblown allegations of ingrained fraud in science, even the occasional scandals by a small number of the world's millions of scientists would not have been taken so seriously. Now that takes out 10 words of 41, or about 24% less fat. I do want to say, though, that the idea here is not to make all sentences shorter, it's to make sentences better. Sentences should be different lengths for impact. Some will be longer, some will be shorter, some will work very well to avoid monotony. We're not doing this because we want shorter sentences, we want better ones. So again, it seems to be a natural law. When you have meaning distributed over more words, you're going to lose impact. Because if the meaning stays the same, but there's more words, then each word is doing less. And it dilutes all the good words. It's like watering down whiskey. And it makes it much harder for the reader, because the reader has to wade through all of that wordiness. And it's like a bicycle rider who has a bike with a chain that's rusty. There's a little more effort all the time, and that keeps building and building. It's the accumulation of wordiness that is the real dagger to good writing. For some more information on these issues, you can check out the website beyondgrammarrules.com. You'll see another video there about cutting unnecessary words and focuses exclusively on clumps of prepositional phrase. Also, there's a post there entitled How to BS Like a Pro, and that article also addresses some of these same issues. Thank you for watching.